The starship Aurora Crest drifted quietly through the black ocean of space as Captain Elias Warren stood in front of the window of his quarters. His hands were behind his back, his posture straight and firm, but his eyes held something he rarely allowed anyone to see: uncertainty. He had faced enemy ships, political pressure, and impossible missions, but nothing had prepared him for what he would be ordered to do today. The message from Earth Command sat on his desk, glowing a soft blue. He had already read it 12 times, and each time the result was the same. His life was about to change forever. He was to marry, not a human woman, not someone he knew, not someone he had chosen. He was to marry Lady Seraphine of the Acheron Collective, a political union meant to bind two civilizations together before the frontier collapsed into chaos. The Acherons were strange to most humans: tall, armored, insect-like beings with shimmering outer shells and dark crystal eyes. Their appearance made many humans uneasy, leading to whispered comments, wrong assumptions, and unfair judgments. Some soldiers even called them ugly behind closed doors, though they never dared say it openly. But the worst part was not the alien appearance or the political chaos. It was the fact that Elias had no choice. Humanity needed this alliance, and Elias Warren had been selected as the symbol of peace. He sighed slowly and pressed his forehead against the cold glass. Below him, the frontier world of Havenreach glowed with soft city lights. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful from space. Hard to imagine that several months ago, it had nearly been destroyed by a misunderstanding between human settlers and Acheron explorers. That incident had shaken both governments. But instead of going to war, they decided on something else. Something they called a binding union, a marriage, a diplomatic bridge. And the bridge was him. "Captain?" A soft voice came from behind the door. It was Lieutenant Mira Ellis, his second in command. "Enter," he said without turning. Mira stepped in, holding a tablet against her chest. She watched him quietly for a moment. "The Acheron envoy has arrived at the docking bay. They're asking if you need more time." Elias closed his eyes for a brief second. "It doesn't matter if I need time. The ceremony is happening today." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It's not fair, sir. You've done more than enough for the fleet already. You didn't deserve this kind of duty." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe fairness isn't the goal here. Maybe peace is." Mira pressed her lips together, clearly unhappy but unable to argue. Everyone on the ship respected Elias. Many of them admired him, but even they saw this mission as too personal, too intrusive, too life-changing to simply accept with discipline. A political marriage was old-fashioned and uncomfortable, even for a galaxy filled with advanced technology. "Do you know anything about her?" Mira asked cautiously. "About Lady Seraphine?" "Only what the diplomats told me," Elias replied. "She is a noble of high status, very respected among her people. And they say she is extremely quiet." Mira hesitated. "People have been whispering other things, sir." Elias finally turned around. "I know," he said calmly, but there was a shadow in his eyes. "They say she is the ugliest of her kind. They say no one else wanted to be part of the alliance. They say this entire marriage is symbolic and nothing more." He shook his head slowly. "But rumors are rumors," he continued. "I don't care about appearances." And he meant it. But he did care about something else: the weight on his shoulders. He was representing the entire human race. One mistake, one wrong word, one misunderstanding, and he could destroy years of delicate diplomacy. "Prepare the team," he said softly. "We can't keep the envoy waiting." Mira nodded and left the room, leaving Elias alone with his thoughts. Elias walked through the metallic corridors of Aurora Crest, each step echoing against the floor. Soldiers and officers stood straighter when he passed. Some saluted, some looked away awkwardly, knowing what was about to happen. Everyone knew. News traveled fast in space. When he reached the docking bay, the giant platform was already filled with officers, diplomats, and security teams. The docking gate hummed with energy, preparing to open. Admiral Rowan, a tall man with silver hair, stepped forward and placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "Captain Warren." This alliance could save millions of lives. You are doing something no soldier has ever been asked to do. I understand, sir, Elias said. Do you accept this responsibility? Rowan asked, his expression kind but firm. Elias took a slow breath. For humanity? Yes. The Admiral nodded, relieved. Then let's begin. The docking clamps clicked loudly, and the gate opened with a hiss of pressurized air. A thin mist rolled into the bay as the Acheron delegation stepped through. Everyone fell silent. The Acherons were tall and elegant in their own alien way, their exoshells shaped like polished armor, with faint colors dancing under the lights. They moved with slow, graceful motions, their limbs long and fluid. Their faces were hidden behind ornate masks made of crystal and metal, a sign of respect and ceremony. And then she appeared. Lady Seraphine stepped through the mist, her exoshell darker than the others, with violet patterns that shimmered like starlight. She stood slightly taller than Elias, her posture calm and poised. Rumors had prepared him to expect something frightening, something off-putting, something abnormal. But what he saw was simply different. Alien, yes. Unfamiliar, yes, but not frightening. Seraphine paused at the center of the docking bay. A soft glow pulsed through the lines of her exoshell, almost like a heartbeat. Two Acheron attendants stepped aside, leaving her facing Elias alone. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Elias stepped forward first, placing his right hand on his chest, the human sign of respect. Seraphine mirrored the gesture, touching the center of her armor with her slender hand. When she spoke, her voice was soft and musical, like distant chimes. Captain Elias Warren, she said, I greet you in trust. Elias nodded. Lady Seraphine, I greet you in peace. Her crystal mask tilted slightly, as if studying him. Then she extended her hand. Elias hesitated only a second before taking it gently. Her fingers were cool, smooth, and surprisingly light. A human diplomat stepped forward. As agreed by both governments, he announced, today marks the union ceremony between Captain Elias Warren of Earth and Lady Seraphine of the Acheron Collective. There was no music, no flowers, no large celebration. This was a military frontier. Simple, direct, and meaningful. Seraphine spoke again. My people value honesty above all. May I ask you something, Captain? Of course. Do you accept this union willingly? Elias held her gaze, two dark crystal eyes behind a beautifully carved mask. I accept it, he said firmly. Not because of duty alone, but because I wish for peace between our people. The faint glow on her exoshell brightened, almost like a soft smile. I accept as well, Seraphine said. And I hope this bond becomes more than a symbol. After the vows were spoken in both languages, the diplomat stepped back. The ceremony was complete. The alliance had officially begun. But for Elias, the weight did not lift. Instead, it settled differently, no longer a burden, but a responsibility he now shared with the quiet alien standing beside him. Seraphine, his wife, his partner in a fragile journey toward peace. As the officers dispersed and the Acheron entourage prepared to return to their vessel, Elias glanced at Seraphine. She was standing calmly, her posture straight, her armor glowing with soft violet light. She turned her head slightly toward him. Captain Elias, will you walk with me? Of course, he replied. They walked side by side through the quiet corridor, two strangers connected by duty. But neither of them knew that this seemingly forced marriage was about to change their lives and the entire galaxy in ways no one could predict. And somewhere deep inside, a small spark of curiosity grew in both hearts. A spark that might one day become something far stronger than a political alliance. The hallway leading to the private union chamber was quiet. Only faint blue lights glowed along the walls, guiding Captain Elias Warren and Lady Seraphine as they walked side by side. The ceremony was finished. The diplomats had returned to their ships. The crowd had dispersed, but the real challenge was only beginning. Elias could feel his heartbeat in his chest. He didn't know exactly why. He had faced dangerous missions and political pressure before. He had spoken in front of governments and military councils. He had never been afraid of responsibility. But this situation was different. He was walking into a room with a woman he barely knew. An alien woman whose culture was unfamiliar, whose emotions were hidden behind a crystal mask, whose future was now tied to his by a political bond. Seraphine walked gracefully beside him. Her exoshell made no sound except for a soft hum. She held her long hands loosely at her sides, and every movement seemed thoughtful and calm. If she felt nervous, she did not show it. Elias wondered what she thought of him. Humans were emotional, expressive, open in their feelings. Acherans were calm, careful, private. Two very different species now connected by a simple, unbreakable agreement. When they reached the door of the private chamber, Seraphine paused. "This room," she said quietly, "is meant only for us. No attendants, no diplomats, no observers." She looked toward Elias. "Are you comfortable entering?" Elias nodded. "Yes. It's our space now." The door opened with a soft hiss. The chamber was surprisingly warm. Soft lights floated along the ceiling, like tiny stars. There was no human furniture, no chairs, no bed. Instead, there were smooth platforms and soft glowing cushions shaped in Acheran design. A gentle scent filled the air, like flowers and cool rain. Seraphine stepped inside, and Elias followed. The door closed behind them, and suddenly the world felt smaller, quieter, more intimate. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Seraphine turned slowly toward him. "Captain Elias, may I ask you something personal?" "No, of course. You accepted this marriage for peace, and I respect that. But," she paused, searching for the right words, "are you uncomfortable with my appearance?" Elias felt a small shock. He had expected many questions from her: political questions, cultural questions, questions about human habits. But not this one. "No," he said softly. "I'm not uncomfortable. You look different from humans. Yes, but that doesn't frighten me." She tilted her head, as if studying the honesty in his voice. "Many humans avoid looking at my people directly. I observe it often." "That's their ignorance," Elias replied. "Not yours." A faint violet glow pulsed on her exoshell, an Acheran sign of appreciation. She took a slow breath. "There is something important I must share," she said. "Something I have not told anyone from your species." Elias nodded. "I'm listening." Seraphine walked toward the center of the room and lowered herself onto a glowing cushion. She placed her hands on her knees and looked at him with calm, steady eyes behind her mask. "Among my people," she began, "the exoshell is not simply armor. It is a symbol of privacy, a protection of identity. We rarely remove it, only in moments of deep trust." Elias sat across from her, keeping his posture relaxed. "I understand. You may have heard rumors," she continued, her voice softer now, "that I am unattractive compared to other Acherans." Elias shook his head. "Rumors don't matter to me, but they matter to my people," she said quietly. "Some believe my darker exoshell is a flaw, an imperfection. It is why I do not appear often in public. It is why many noble houses questioned my place in this union." Elias felt a small ache in his chest. "You didn't deserve that." Seraphine's mask lowered slightly, as if she was looking down. "Perhaps, but fate chose this path for us, and I wish to honor it." She looked up again, her eyes meeting his. "And for that reason," she said, her voice steady, "I want to do something tonight that no Acheran has ever done with a human." A soft warmth spread through the room. Elias leaned forward, curious but respectful. "What is it?" he asked gently. Seraphine lifted her hands slowly to the sides of her crystal mask. "I want to shed my exoshell." Elias froze. He had read cultural documents. He knew the meaning. Acherans only shed their shell in front of someone they trusted fully. It was a sacred gesture almost equal to sharing one's soul. "Are you sure?" Elias asked quietly. "This is not something you should feel forced to do." "I do not feel forced," Seraphine replied. "I am choosing this." You spoke to me with respect during the ceremony. You did not fear me. You did not judge me. That is rare for my people to experience from humans. Elias felt the weight of her words. I want to begin our bond with truth, she said. And trust. She stood up slowly. Elias rose as well, giving her space. Soft lights glowed brighter as Seraphine reached behind her neck. A gentle clicking sound echoed through the room. The outer layers of her exoshell loosened. Like petals opening on a flower. Piece by piece, the shell became translucent, then lifted away as if supported by invisible hands. Elias watched in silence, and then, from beneath the armor, Seraphine emerged. Her true form was not harsh or frightening. She was tall and graceful, with smooth, shimmering skin that glowed like moonlight. Her features were far more delicate than the shell suggested soft cheek lines. Luminous eyes that shifted subtly between blue and purple, and hair like strands flowing with gentle light. Seraphine stood still, her breath calm. Without the exoshell, she looked younger, more alive, more expressive. Elias felt his breath catch not in fear, but in awe. She was beautiful, not because she looked human, but because she looked like herself, open, honest, vulnerable, and brave enough to stand without armor in front of a stranger she wanted to trust. This is my true form, she said quietly. I have never shown it to anyone outside my species. Do you accept it? Elias stepped closer. Slowly, carefully. Yes, he said firmly. I accept you exactly as you are. Her luminous eyes softened. For the first time, she whispered. I do not feel alone. Elias felt the same truth inside his own chest. He offered a hand, palm open. Seraphine hesitated only a moment, then placed her glowing fingers gently in his. Her touch was warm now, warmer than before, almost like human skin. It is strange, she said softly. But I feel lighter without my shell. Elias smiled. Maybe because you're not carrying this moment alone. They sat together on the soft cushion, hands still lightly touching. The room felt peaceful, almost like a sanctuary far from the political noise of the galaxy. Seraphine looked around slowly. Humans speak of first nights with nervousness. Is this night difficult for you? Elias chuckled quietly. It is unusual, but not difficult. Not anymore. She tilted her head, curious. Why not? Because, Elias said gently, I can see you. The real you. And there's nothing frightening about honesty. The glow in her eyes brightened. For a long time, neither spoke. They simply sat together. Two lives slowly intertwining. Two worlds learning to breathe the same air. Finally, Seraphine said, Elias, may we talk? Not as representatives, not as symbols, but simply as two people trying to understand each other? Elias nodded. I'd like that very much. And so they talked. They talked about childhood, about dreams, about their planets, their families, their fears. Seraphine laughed quietly, a soft, musical sound. Elias listened more than he spoke, learning that beneath her calm exterior lived a curious, thoughtful soul who had spent her life watching from behind a mask. Hours passed without either of them noticing. By the time they grew quiet again, the tiny floating lights in the chamber had dimmed to a soft glow. Seraphine leaned gently against the cushion, her shoulders relaxed. I feel at peace, she whispered. Elias smiled softly. So do I. Their first night was not filled with romance or grand gestures. It was filled with something far more important: trust. Two strangers had entered the room, but two allies, two partners, now sat together under the soft starlights. And for the first time, Elias felt hopeful about the future. And Seraphine, she no longer felt ugly, because tonight, she felt seen. The next morning, on the starship Aurora Crest, everything felt different. Elias woke early, his mind full of thoughts about the previous night. He remembered Seraphine without her exoshell open. Gentle, glowing like soft starlight. He remembered their long conversation, their laughter, the calm feeling between them. For the first time since the alliance began, He felt hope instead of worry. He dressed quickly and stepped out into the hall. Crew members saluted as he passed, but they looked curious too. News traveled fast in space. Everyone wanted to know how the private meeting went. Elias simply nodded politely and kept walking. He wasn't going to share anything. Those moments with Seraphine belonged only to them. When he reached the observation deck, he saw her standing near the window, wearing her exoshell again. The violet patterns glowed softly, forming familiar shapes across the armor. She turned when she sensed him. "Good morning, Elias." "Good morning," he replied gently. She touched the side of her mask. "I wore the shell again because some of your officers were nervous yesterday. I do not want to make them uncomfortable." "You don't have to hide yourself," Elias said. "You can be in your true form whenever you feel safe." Her eyes behind the mask softened. "Thank you. I will." She paused. "I will think about that." They stood together for a moment, watching the view of Haven Reach spinning slowly below. Despite the calm scene, Seraphine seemed thoughtful, almost worried. "Is something wrong?" Elias asked. Seraphine lowered her head slightly. "There is something I did not tell you last night. Something I feared sharing." Elias stepped closer. "You can tell me anything." She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Some members of my people do not accept this alliance. They believe humans and Acherans are too different to work together. They say your government wants influence in our systems. They say our culture will weaken if we join with yours." Elias frowned. "I had hoped that opposition was small." "It is small," Seraphine said, "but loud, and sometimes unwise." Elias felt the weight of her words. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Nothing harmful," she said quickly, "but rumors have been spreading from the Acheran Council. They say the human fleet wants to claim Acheran territory. They say your marriage to me is a trick for political advantage." Elias sighed. "None of that is true." "I know," Seraphine whispered, "but many do not." A silence grew between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, just heavy. Finally, Elias said, "Then we have to show them the truth." "Together." Seraphine looked up, surprised. "Together?" Elias nodded. "You and I. As partners. As symbols of peace." Her exoshell shimmered as if responding to the emotion inside her. "I would like that," she said softly. Just then, Admiral Rowan's voice sounded over the comm. "Captain Warren and Lady Seraphine, please report to the main briefing room." The two exchanged a glance. "Something happened," Elias said. Seraphine nodded. "Let us go." The main briefing room was filled with soft lights and holographic screens. Several officers stood around the central table, including Admiral Rowan and Lieutenant Mira. They turned as Elias and Seraphine entered. Rowan looked troubled. "Captain, Lady Seraphine, we have received a confusing message from the Acheran Collective." "Confusing?" Elias repeated. Rowan tapped a control pad. A hologram flickered to life, showing an Acheran diplomat with silver markings across his exoshell. "This is Ambassador Talon," Rowan explained. "He says a group inside the Acheran Council is questioning the alliance treaty. They want proof that humanity is acting in good faith." Seraphine tilted her head. "Proof?" "The marriage agreement is already signed by both governments." "Yes," Rowan said gently. "But they want something more visible. Something emotional. Something public." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Such as?" The Admiral hesitated. "They want you and Lady Seraphine to visit the Acheran capital together. Not for politics, public meetings, public conversations, cultural exchange events. They want to see how the two of you act when you're not in official ceremony." Elias blinked. "A publicity tour?" Rowan nodded. "Yes. A peaceful demonstration of unity." Seraphine looked thoughtful. "This is unusual. My people do not show personal bonds openly." Elias studied her expression. "Are you uncomfortable with this?" She paused. "A little," then, softly, "But I trust you." Elias felt a warm shift in his chest at her words. He gave a reassuring smile. Then Rowan spoke again. "There's one more thing. A human colony Redwind Station sent a message last night. They reported that an Acheron scout ship was seen near their border. The colony is nervous. They think the Acherons are watching them. Seraphine straightened. That is impossible. The Acheron Collective would never send scouts without a diplomatic message. End quote. Rowan nodded. We suspect misinformation. Someone is trying to create tension between your people and ours. Elias looked at Seraphine. That's the second time this week. She lowered her voice. Someone is trying to break our alliance. The room fell silent. Not because of fear, because of understanding. This wasn't a war of weapons. It was a war of rumors, doubt, fear, misunderstanding. A war of trust. A peaceful but dangerous test. Finally Elias spoke. Then we need to act. Calmly, carefully, together. Rowan nodded. The Council is asking for the two of you to send a joint message. Something that shows cooperation. Seraphine exchanged a long look with Elias. I believe we should do it. Elias nodded. I agree. Rowan smiled faintly. Good. Let's prepare your broadcast. The recording studio was small and quiet, with simple lighting and 2 seats placed side by side. Seraphine removed her mask but kept her exoshell on, wanting to appear formal but still honest. Elias wore his navy blue captain uniform. A technician held up a hand. Broadcast beginning in 3, 2, 1. The light blinked on, signaling that billions of humans and Acherons could now see them. Elias spoke first. My name is Captain Elias Warren. I stand with Lady Seraphine today as a partner in peace. Seraphine continued smoothly beside him. Our marriage is not a trick. It is not a secret plan. It is a hope for unity between 2 different species who want harmony in the galaxy. Elias added, we understand that change can be uncomfortable, but trust grows when we choose communication instead of fear. Seraphine nodded. I wish to assure my people. Humanity respects our culture. Captain Elias respects me. We are learning together. Step by step, Elias smiled at her, genuine and warm. And I am honored to learn from her. She represents the best of her people. Seraphine's eyes glowed softly. And he represents the best of his. Their words were simple, honest, and calm. No grand promises, no dramatic speeches. Just 2 beings speaking from the heart. When the broadcast ended, the technician looked at them with wide eyes. That was beautiful. Seraphine lowered her gaze shyly. Thank you. Elias looked at her with quiet pride. You did wonderfully. She touched the glowing lines on her shell, embarrassed. I only spoke the truth. That's what made it powerful, Elias said. For the first time since the troubles began, Seraphine felt hope again. Later that evening, Elias and Seraphine walked through the ship's garden dome. Artificial sunlight filtered through transparent panels, shining on green plants and small trees. It was a peaceful place, created for relaxation and fresh air. Seraphine touched one of the leaves gently. Your plants are soft, she said with wonder. Elias smiled. You like them? They feel alive in a gentle way, she whispered. He nodded. Then this place is perfect for us, she said. Elias turned to her. Do you think our message will help calm things? I hope so, she replied quietly. But hope must be followed with patience. He admired her calm strength. She admired his open honesty. 2 different worlds slowly growing closer. Elias, she said suddenly, thank you for standing with me today. I'll always stand with you, he said. Her eyes glowed a soft violet, warmer than any light in the dome. Then perhaps this alliance will survive after all. Elias nodded. It will, because we're building it together. And as they walked slowly beneath the artificial sunlight, a gentle connection formed, one even stronger than the treaty itself. A new kind of war was happening around them. Not a war of weapons, but a war fought with patience, truth, understanding, and they were winning. Together. The next few days on the Aurora Crest passed in a strange mix of calm and quiet tension. The public broadcast from Elias and Seraphine spread across human and Acheron networks. Millions watched it. Some were moved. Some were unsure. Some were curious. But everyone agreed on one thing. The two of them looked sincere. They looked like people who wanted peace. Still, the worries that had begun in the galaxy didn't disappear instantly. Rumors still drifted between colonies. Doubts still whispered through councils. But the loudest voices, those demanding conflict, had grown noticeably softer. Elias and Seraphin continued meeting every day, sometimes for official work, sometimes for learning about each other's cultures, and sometimes simply to talk. Those quiet moments became their favorite. One morning, Seraphin stood on the ship's balcony overlooking the engine core. The soft hum of the power units filled the air like distant music. She wore only a thin, elegant layer of her exoshell, not the full ceremonial armor. The patterns upon it shifted gently like flowing water. Elias approached from behind. "Good morning." She turned, her eyes glowing softly. "Good morning, Elias." He noticed something different about her posture, lighter, more relaxed, almost peaceful. "You seem happy today." "I received a message from the Acheron Council," she said, her voice bright. "Many officials were touched by our broadcast. Some even apologized for doubting us." "That's wonderful news," Elias said. "Yes," Seraphin replied. "But there is something more important. They invited us to the Acheron capital." Elias raised his brows. "Truly?" "Yes," she said. "They want us to show how two cultures can live side by side. They want us to visit their gardens, their learning halls, their art centers." "That sounds beautiful," Elias said honestly. Seraphin nodded. "I believe it will help strengthen trust." Elias smiled. "So do I." But he noticed something else in her eyes, a faint shimmer of nervousness. "You're unsure about something," he said gently. Seraphin lowered her gaze. "A little. My true form. Many Acherons have never seen it without the exoshell. It is not normal for one of my status." Elias stepped closer. "You don't have to show it if you're uncomfortable." She looked up. "But I want to. My trust in you helped me reveal it. Now, perhaps, it is time to trust my own people with it too." Elias felt admiration grow inside him. "Then I will stand with you." Her eyes warmed. "Thank you." The journey to the Acheron homeworld began that afternoon. The starship glided through hyperspace tunnels, surrounded by spiraling lights that shimmered like stars caught in motion. Seraphin spent much of the trip quietly preparing, reviewing cultural guidelines for welcoming a human into Acheron territory. Elias spent his time reading about Acheron traditions, trying to learn every detail so he wouldn't accidentally disrespect someone. He wanted to make Seraphin proud. One evening, they met in the peaceful garden dome. Plants rustled softly beneath artificial breeze. Small water streams flowed between glowing stones. Seraphin sat on a bench made of smooth green crystal. Elias joined her. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked. "I think so," Elias said, smiling. "I've been studying more than I did at the academy." Seraphin laughed softly, a gentle sound that made the plants around them seem brighter. "You do not need to know everything, Elias. Just be yourself." "Are you ready?" he asked. Her laughter faded. She looked up at the lights. "I hope so." Elias reached out and gently touched her hand. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." She nodded slowly. "Yes. Together." The next day, the Aurora crest arrived at the Acheron homeworld, Lasara Prime. It was breathtaking from space. Glowing forests, silver oceans, tall spire-like cities that shimmered with color. Seraphin stared out the window, emotion shimmering in her eyes. "It has been many cycles since I returned home." Elias watched the planet too. "It's beautiful. So are its people," she said quietly. "They deserve peace." The starship docked gently on a floating platform above the capital city. Soft lights illuminated the walkway. A welcoming group of Acheron representatives waited politely below. Seraphin wore her full ceremonial exoshell again for the landing, but Elias could feel her nervous energy through her careful movements. When they stepped out together, a soft ripple passed through the gathered crowd. A human and an Acheron. Walking side by side, it was an image many had never imagined. Elias bowed respectfully. Seraphin touched her mask in the traditional Acheron greeting. An elder representative stepped forward. Lady Seraphine, Captain Elias, welcome. The council awaits you. Seraphine nodded softly. We thank you for this welcome. 42. They were guided through the capital's central walkway, lined with tall, glowing trees that swayed gently even though there was no wind. Acheron citizens stepped back respectfully, watching with curious eyes. Some tilted their heads, analyzing. Some whispered softly to one another, but no one looked hostile. If anything, the atmosphere felt full of quiet curiosity. As they reached the council hall, Elias noticed Seraphine softly inhale. She was nervous again. You're doing great, he whispered. Her armor shimmered faintly, a sign of gratitude. The council chamber was grand, circular, and filled with pale light that moved like calm waves across the floor. 12 Acheron council members stood around a central platform. Lady Seraphine, the head counselor said, we are honored to receive you and your human partner. Seraphine bowed. Your honors. Thank you for accepting our visit. 2-5. The counselor looked at Elias. Human ambassador, we thank you as well. Elias bowed respectfully. I am grateful to be here. The counselor paused, then said kindly, the galaxy is uneasy. Some fear the alliance. Some support it. But we seek clarity. He gestured gently. We wish to understand your bond. Elias looked at Seraphine. Seraphine looked at Elias. Then she stepped forward. There is something I want you all to see, she said, her voice calm but strong. Something important. The council fell silent. Slowly, gracefully, not rushed or pressured, Seraphine reached to her exoshell. Elias felt the room shift. Piece by piece, she removed her shell. Soft light filled the chamber as her true form emerged, smooth, luminous, gentle, beautiful, in a quiet, natural way. A soft gasp echoed through the room. Many council members had never seen an Acheron noble's true form, and certainly never one revealed in peace, trust, and unity before a human. Seraphine stood tall, elegant, without fear. This is who I am, she said. Not ugly, not strange, not hidden. She glanced at Elias. He accepted me like this on our first night. He saw me not as armor, but as a person. Elias stepped beside her. And I stand beside her. Not because politics forced us together, but because she showed me kindness and trust. Seraphine continued. We believe in peace. We believe in unity. We believe two different species can walk side by side without fear. The room remained silent, but not in a cold way. It was the silence of deep thought. Finally, the head counselor spoke softly. Seraphine, you are brave. Another council member nodded. Your honesty honors us. A third one added warmly. Your union represents more than a treaty. It represents hope. Seraphine's eyes shimmered with emotion. Elias felt relief wash over him. When the meeting ended, Seraphine and Elias stepped out onto the balcony, overlooking the glowing city. The sky was painted with soft shades of rose and blue. The floating trees drifted in the windless air like gentle spirits. Elias turned to her. You were incredible. Seraphine looked down shyly. I was nervous. You didn't look nervous, he said. She smiled softly. I am glad. Elias looked at the horizon. Do you think the council believes in us now? Yes, Seraphine whispered. And more importantly, I believe in us too. Elias turned toward her. Seraphine. She met his gaze. Yes? He smiled gently. Today, you looked truly beautiful. Her luminous eyes softened. I felt beautiful. She stepped closer, her voice warm. Not because of my form, but because you stood with me, and I always will. Elias said quietly. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting everything in a soft, glowing light. A peaceful future was beginning, not with weapons, not with fear, but with trust, honesty, and a bond built from two hearts willing to understand each other. Together, Elias and Seraphine stood on the balcony, watching a galaxy begin to heal. Not because of a treaty, because of them, because humanity. when brave, kind, and open-hearted could change the stars.